Hi there. We just finished our session all about how to get your mojo back. And because we had a few technical difficulties with Microsoft Teams, I wanted to share a few of the things that you were asking about, the spellings of things, and a kind of review of some of the tips that we went through during the discussion. So first of all, you may remember I started with that tip based on the research by Matt Killingsworth out of Harvard, that wherever you are, be there, because being present and thinking about what you're doing causes you to be more happy and more engaged than even when you are thinking about other things that are more pleasant than what you're doing. So wherever you are, be there. That's your first mojo tip. The second thing I wanted to share with you so that you could see it is that Yerkes-Dodson law. Where is that? Right here. So I told you in the session about how we can go from that bored state on the bottom where we aren't stressed about anything. Maybe work is a little boring. We might even be asleep at that time, right? And we need some increasing levels of stress in order to get us to this peak area at the top. So we get some dopamine, some noradrenaline, some acetylcholine pumping, and that can help us to get into this flow state right at the top of that. The problem is that when we spend too much time in that stress zone, the chemicals in our body and our brain aren't returning to normal, and we can start to slip down this other side of this model. And that is, there's been work done by Freudenberger and North that talk about 12 stages of burnout. I'm just sharing kind of a synopsis of a few of the areas. So working harder, being unable to turn off. I can only imagine that this must be a challenge for your group, especially as you are supporting so many people across the UK, across England, through this pandemic. So being careful of that and wanting to manage your energy before you slip further down the scale. The next area that you might start to notice is some displaced conflict, getting angry, blame, that sort of thing, getting angry at things that you wouldn't normally. And you might continue down withdrawal, behavior changes. People are asking you how you're doing because they're noticing something is going on. And then finally, that inner emptiness, some depression possibly, and you're into that burnout phase. So we want to help capture this as soon as we can at the top, because the longer you go down this scale, the harder it is, the longer it will take to get out of it. So I also mentioned how we're living in that VUCA world and the SCARF model. So the SCARF model is from David Rock and the Neuro Leadership Institute. It's these 5 things that the brain sees as just as threatening as a threat to our physical well-being, like a saber-toothed tiger chasing us. So threats to these things are status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness are also seen in the brain as a threat. We go into that stress state, and that is happening more and more often because we are living in such a fast-paced, changing world. So many things we can't control, especially amplified over the past year. So that is causing us to go into what they call allostatic load. And that can cause a lot of health problems with our memory, our learning, all of that. I also shared with you some apps that can help you to single task. So we talked about how multitasking doesn't really work and how you can single task. Don't switch tasks. So that means putting your phones away, turning off your notifications. And one of my favorite apps for this is Flora. Flora is the app where you can join a team or invite people to a team, set a set time that you're not going to check your phone, and a tree grows. If anyone in your team checks the phone, the tree dies. So it's this gamified way of getting people to not be checking their social media and picking up their phone all the time. Set a time, try Flora. There's another one called Forest that's very similar. I also talked about the Ultradian Rhythm. I know some people had questions. What is that? What is that called? How do you spell it? So that is these 90-minute cycles that go throughout the night. This was discovered by sleep researcher Kleitman, Kleitman, I believe. And it's not only at sleep time, it's also happening during the day. So this is why we want to work in some 90-minute cycles, giving ourselves that healing. Where am I here? That healing that you can see in those down swoops of that ultradian cycle. You want to heal that ultradian rhythm so that you can have more energy left at the end of the day. So this is why we want to work like a sprinter. We want to do 90-minute calendar blocks. We want to take those 10-minute, 20-minute breaks. I didn't share this, but there is an app called, or a web browser app called FocusMate, where you can partner with someone all over the world. I've been teamed up with people in India, in Europe, in the UK, in the United States, and you're partnered with that person for about an hour. And you join this call on a video, you let them know what you're working on, and then you both turn off your audio and get to work. At the end, you check in to say how it went. And it's amazing that how having that accountability partner for that 1 hour really helps you to focus on what you're doing and you don't get distracted. So it helps you to work in those sprints and get lots done in that hour-long kind of FocusMate time. So check out FocusMate. I think it's focusmate.com. The other thing I mentioned that people were asking about about how do you spell that? The Zeigarnik Effect. This is that effect where your brain, even though you're trying to focus on something, your brain is coming up with ideas or tasks that you have to do. And this is why we want to really have a notebook around all the time. I use Otter, which is a voice to text recorder. That's an app for your phone or your computer. You talk into it and then you can send it to yourself as a text format. So I use that. You might, if you have a home device like a Google Home or something, or Siri, you can set a reminder and use that voice activation feature, because sometimes you just don't have that notepad around. So those are some apps to help with the Zeigarnik Effect. Let me see what other apps. We talked about the oxytocin, and there was a study by Paul Zak. Paul Zak, Z-A-K, studied the Zappos employees and found that when they talked about shared values before they went into a team building activity, they had higher levels of oxytocin and better performance in the team challenge. I also shared the Elevate app that is really helpful with your helping with your mental energy. With your mental energy. So here's all of those energy hacks if I can kind of put them all together. Physical energy, changing your state, breathing, moving, resting. I love dance videos for this. So many choreographers were releasing teach you how to dance videos on Instagram and YouTube over the course of the pandemic. There's tons out there. I love just, putting on some music and moving. That is my physical energy excitement. Mental energy, that smiling activity where you put the pen in your mouth, changes your state, changes the recovery from stress. Doing something simple. And then the app that I love is Elevate. It gives you different challenges every day that task different parts of your brain. So you're constantly learning and growing and creating those connections in parts of the brain that maybe you don't always use. And then on the emotional side, this isn't an app, but we like to look at like charts of emotions because we sometimes can't think of what the emotion is. And when we think about it, it does dampen that amygdala hijack. So naming that emotion. There's lots of emotion lists or emotion. There's an emotion circle that is available on the web that is really great for that too. So we talked about those emotions. And on the spiritual side, I love Headspace app. I also use Balance, which is another meditation app. This is for helping with meditate. Bonus, I will share with you. This is new. I didn't share it in the session. I also use an app called Shortcuts, which is on the iPhone, which automatically causes a meditation to start as soon as I turn off my daily alarm when I wake up in the morning. I hit alarm off, And Balance opens through my Shortcuts app and starts a guided meditation that helps me wake up and feel more positive. So I like to hack things to make them automatic and cause me to not have to think about it. So you can try that if you have an iPhone, use Shortcuts, and you can link it with your Headspace or your Balance app. So those were our energy hacks. I also shared how Sonia Lyubomirsky has talked about how our happiness depends on these three things. We often focus on that 10%, everything that's happening to us in our circumstance, but I was encouraging you to not give away your part of the pie, which is that 40%. Don't give up your piece of the pie because you always have the opportunity to make things better. Over the years, this model has been challenged a little bit with people saying genetics plays a bigger role. So that 40% might be 30%. It's not totally clear, but you always have some pie. Don't give up your pie. And then I did not share some of these final hacks as we were running out of time. Some final hacks for happiness. One of the things that I know gets in the way of my happiness is when I step away from a conversation or a discussion and I don't feel like I was true to who I wanted to be in that discussion. So I like to use intention alarms. Now, what do I mean? I actually have in my phone alarm set that I have named after the intention that I want to bring to that session. So this morning or at noon when you were all meeting with me today, that was 8 a.m. for me. So at 7:45 a.m. I had an alarm go off that said I am energetic and inspiring because that was the energy I wanted to bring to you at 8 a.m. On 12 o'clock every Wednesday, I have an alarm that reminds me that it is their first day because that means for me, I was losing my mojo recently because I facilitate the same sessions a lot and it starts to get a little boring for me. I like new novel things. And so I realized that just because I have done these sessions many times, the people in the room or on the Zoom have not. It's their first time. So I put in an alarm every time before I do a workshop that says it's their first day so that I can really remember that this is a chance to really make a difference for those people in the room. So intention alarms, love them. And then finally, I shared gratitude. The big researcher on gratitude is Robert Emmons or Emmons, Emmons. If you want to do some research on gratitude, he's one of the biggest researchers in that field. So there's some of the things that you might not have had a chance to write down or you didn't miss the spelling of. I hope that helps. I have also put up in this corner my Twitter handle. I would love to hear from you what stood out to you. Make sure you tag me and Public Health UK and Better Together Conference and do one small thing that can help you to be more present, more engaged, more energized, and more satisfied with what's going on for you. I hope that helps.